Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Sword Art Online anime review. This one's going to be for Alicization episode 32, Blood and Life. I thought this was a very good episode of SAO. Some real kind of strong emotional moments with the sacrifices being made as the battles continue. Continuing some pretty good characterization of characters who we don't really know that well across both the Dark Territory sides as well as some of the other Integrity Knights. I think they're doing a good job in this kind of section of the story where we don't have Kirito active. Asuna hasn't kind of stepped back into the story yet since she's heading in there. She's going to arrive at some point, but she hasn't arrived yet. So it really is on Alice to be that sort of center point. We're very reliant currently on Alice, Vecta, Bercoli, kind of Finatio, Ronier, TS, those type of characters to really stand out, even though we don't know them as well as a Kirito or an Asuna. But I think they're doing a good job with Alice, especially in an episode like this one. I think they did a really good job at kind of getting across the idea that she is the main character kind of currently, because plot-wise, she finally finds out that she is the center of attention. That it is all about her in a way. She doesn't know the full scope of it yet, but is beginning to realize that she is sort of the prize everyone is after. She knows, the world end altar thing that Kirito was asked about before whatever happened to him. And now he finds out that the entire Dark Territory, the one goal they have in this battle is to capture Alice, the Priestess of Light as they're calling her. And this is a bit of a kind of shock to her, but it also gives her and the good forces here, the human forces, the tactics now. They know that they can use Alice as a decoy to guide the battle where they need to, and they can really help it that way, knowing that Alice is all the enemy wants. So that was a very, very important kind of reveal to come out for Alice to find out that from the leader of the ogres here, Ferger, who, again, we're pretty much just introduced to him here. I think we saw a few seconds of him in the last episode. We just find him here as he's kind of dying. Alice cuts him down. But in the dialogue that they do have back and forth with him, I like that they at least characterized him here. That they're doing a good job at getting across the idea that these are all, they're all characters. They're AI. They're all artificial fluctlights. They all have a light cube cluster. That in this game, obviously people are represented by different races, but fundamentally, it is a sort of human brain that they all fundamentally have, just one of these artificial brains in the fluctlights, the light cube. And they did that here with Ferger of just he wants to make sure that no matter what, even if he has to die, he will get Alice back to Vecta, so Vecta can grant him that one wish, which is that he wants his people to be able to live kind of out on the open plains again, raise horses, live the way that they used to live before the kind of war and stuff like that. That's just a nice little kind of idealistic kind of thing that he wants to just help get across the idea. He may be on the enemy side of things with regards to where the story is, but he has these sort of peaceful ideals of what he wants for his species going forward as their leader. So I thought that was, pretty well done. Even that little kind of back and forth that they have of just Alice kind of notes that, how can you talk to me like this and want to just capture me after I massacred most of your people? And he just notes that, I'm a leader too. We the leaders have the heaviest burden to bear on the battlefield. I acknowledge that. It was just a nice little thing to this, in the grand scheme of things, minor character who's kind of only in the story to, really get across the idea that the enemy, the Dark Territory, has lost another one of their leaders, gets a little bit of a character arc here, and I thought that was very, very well done just in this opening section of the episode. But talking about Alice and her arc, I like that they showed the aftermath with her of the big, basically laser blast that wipes out so much of the enemy forces that, of course, she's drained basically after this. She falls off her her dragon, and Finatio kind of catches her, and she has to kind of regain her composure. But there's also that sense of like she's a little bit shaken up by just the magnitude of what she did, that she killed thousands of people in one go. And given that she'd already been kind of pondering the amount of death happening because she was absorbing all of that energy, the fact that she just killed all these other people is just, it affects her here. And given that they're getting across the idea that, you know, the Integrity Knights, orcs, ogres, in a level of just like what their intelligence is, they are all fundamentally the same because they're all AIs just in this game. It made it very, very impactful. And so you had her kind of dealing with the fact that she's just committed, as she calls it, you know, the massacre she committed, killing so many people. And so you then have her having to deal with the sort of the enemy's counterattack, which is them sacrificing their own soldiers to get the energy they need to launch their kind of dark attack, which is aiming to take out the whole decoy squad that Broccoli and Alice kind of lead. It's obviously meant to be this brutal decision on the enemy side, that Vecta immediately comes up with this idea: oh, you don't have the resources, just kill the survivors that we have. You know, we have tons of orcs, just get rid of them. 3,000, fine. And DIL agrees with it, and it makes her sort of, in a way, like appreciate Vecta even more, that he'd make such a cruel decision. She's all for it. And then it makes you feel for Lilpalin here and the orcs, because you see sort of the pecking order of these things, of like, we haven't seen the pugilist yet, we haven't seen the dark knights, the dark mages are sort of held back. She's in a higher position than like the orcs. The other ones, the more kind of like non-human, the ones that look the least like humans, they're just being sacrificed at will. Like the goblins were the first to go, basically, and now the orcs and the ogres are gone, the giants are gone. You know, you see the kind of pecking order of things, and Lilpalin is very much presenting that idea of like, he doesn't like humans because he feels they look down on him, and now here is like the rest of his own forces also looking down on the orcs, and it just furthers his kind of hatred here. But I really like the emotion that they got out there from Lilpalin, like that DIL is like a villain on kind of the same level as Vecta here, and that like they're making you care differently about the different Dark Territory characters, and that like we go back to Shasta, who was actually a very honorable character, and we saw what happened to him. We saw the Ferger actually has kind of some kind of honor, that idealism to him. Now Lilpalin, of not wanting his men, his people, to be sacrificed in that way for mistakes that were made that had nothing to do with them. And we see him lose, I suppose, effectively, you know, his love basically steps up to be the one who leads that 3,000 to be sacrificed to, in their mind, you know, do what the Emperor needs done. And he has to watch as just they're killed in this sacrifice spell, and it's brutal. Like, and I think they did a good job at getting that across, especially with the tease of that seal of the right eye with Lilpalin, of like, you look at his hand and you can see the glow, the red glow on his hand. That, again, another character who is, you know, getting upset, like on the verge of breaking the rules of his territory. And we know that on the Dark Territory side of things, the rule is that you follow the strongest. So he's on the verge of breaking that, which is following Vecta. So, you know, there are these interesting things to think about overall. And we've had a few teases of that kind of now. We saw that with the leader of the Giants kind of go crazy when he was nearly killed a little bit, and now we're seeing it here. So some very, very cool stuff, and I suppose we'll get more of it as we go forward. So yeah, the big kind of dark worm storm magic attack that is meant to be the sort of dark counterpoint to Alice's attack. I thought the way they animated it was like very, very cool. It was just these homing kind of, you know, threads of darkness that will just kind of absorb everything. They said like armor and magic kind of couldn't block it and stuff like that, and this all set the stage for Eldrie's sacrifice, in that you had the scene of him and Alice earlier on talking, and him feeling like he failed in the first section of battle because the goblins broke through his forces, and he survived. He clearly participated in the battle afterwards, but that he fundamentally feels he failed that section of the battle, and Renry was able to sort of redeem himself on the back of that column. And that's the only reason his failure isn't kind of more heightened in the grand scheme of this battle. Alice tries to give him that confidence again and get across that you are needed going forward. But you see the entire time here that he is not happy with that. He having been trained by Alice, doesn't feel he's lived up to that training, and so when they go out on the decoy mission goes out, Bercoli decides that, okay, you want to go out on your own? No. To make it work, we have to send out a third of our forces, and we all have to head out. That's the only way to properly split up this battlefield. So he's going with her, and so this is when the attack comes in, and Eldrie rushes in to defend his master here. So the big sacrifice moment, I thought it was so well done. They put all of the big animation budget into this to make it as kind of dynamic as possible. The motion of the dragon, the way they animated the trails of the darkness, and the trails of his release recollection frost scale whip. I really like that, just the snakes of kind of ice light versus the kind of worms of darkness, and they did a good job at explaining kind of like what he does, how he's able to turn what would have been this attack that would have homed in on a bunch of individual targets and just taken them all out. Like if Eldrie wasn't there, like so many of them would have gone down to this attack. But what Eldrie is able to do with the power of his frost scale whip is make it so that all of those kind of homing targets are locked onto the amount of sort of snakes he makes with his frost scale whip. So he was like the only one capable of doing this, because he is the only one capable of like forming that many of anything basically with his powers. So he just gets all of these kind of strands of his whip and gets all of the kind of worms of darkness to follow him. And I just thought they did a great job as he just, rode the dragon into the sky to protect Alice, and you just gradually see him getting kind of consumed by that darkness. His health goes down. He gets his big sort of power of will incarnation moment as he survives that little bit longer to get higher into the sky, and you see his health go into the minus into like the hundreds of thousands of minus health before he finally kind of falls. And even then, he still lives long enough to get some final words out to Alice when, it's all over. So, I thought that was a really good one, in that, like, from his perspective over the course of this episode, you got that idea that he did actually kind of, love her, I suppose, basically, but he could never kind of bring himself to sort of say it out loud to her. So at his death, he kind of finally remembers, his mother, and it brings back like just the tragedy of all of the Integrity Knights, and that like they still have lost that kind of part of their memory, because of what happened to them, what made them this way. And so it's still this kind of very powerful thing for him to like just there's that tragedy when an Integrity Knight dies, that it's at that last moment is when they remember sort of that bit that was missing from them. And for him it was his mother, which again we go back to like the Kirito Yu-Gi-Oh fight against Eldrie, like relatively early on in Alicization. That was how they sort of got away from him, was remembering, making him remember some of that stuff. So I just thought they did a really good job here. The emotion as Alice has to kind of watch her disciple sacrifice himself for her, and it was a huge thing because that was a devastating attack, and he made the sacrifice for himself for the many basically, and he was the only one who really could have done that. Like otherwise someone was going down, at least one or two other people were going to go down, but he makes it just himself, and that like even his dragon survives. That's how much he was able to focus the attention on himself. So very, very cool to see. And then, yeah, the revenge from Alice, I thought, was another great character moment from her, of just suddenly the sort of fear she had over like what she had done at the end of like the last episode, the start of this one, is sort of gone, and she just rides into battle and takes out like the rest of the mages. It was a incredible scene that just got across so clearly like her power, that she only uses like the enhanced armament version of her weapon, and she still takes all of the mages out. Of course, they tease that DIL survived, by even though clearly she gets injured here because an attack comes in, but the idea is that she pretty much like sucked the health out of those two other dark mages that she stuck her hands into. So she'll make it out of this. She'll make an appearance again, obviously, but for the most part, Alice took out all the dark mages, and things seem to be going good for the human empire here. But we'll see what happens as we go forward. But yeah, just I did like that revenge-driven Alice at the end of the episode, seeing the complete contrast in a way from the start of the episode. It really showed her character, that there's a reason she is the kind of ALICE, and that you're seeing sort of the most character, the most emotion from her, the most like kind of tough choices, decision-making stuff from her, in that you've seen that growth, like from those like early kind of awkward interactions with Kirito on the side of the Axiom Church, where she's trying to maintain that knight composure, versus a lot of the emotion that we've seen in this War of the Underworld section of Alicization, of the emotions about like Kirito, Eldrie now, dealing with like the effects of the battle and so on. I think they've been doing a very good job here. Again, given that like Kirito isn't really in play here in terms of like seeing his character like take control of the story, or Asuna, or any of the other characters, that like Alice has to really take on that main character mantle in episodes like this, because our other characters aren't in play right now. So I think that's very impressive that they're able to do that. And yeah, coming up soon, of course, we're still waiting for Asuna to arrive at any point, but they're also teasing that most of the best of the enemy forces still haven't come into play yet. The pugilists, the dark knights, stuff like that, they still have to come into play. So that's what we'll be seeing next. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.